Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about Tyree Nichols. There's some things we need to discuss here. First of all, I'm actually surprised and a bit disappointed that I didn't see a bigger protest movement break out. Um, this is the perfect opportunity to show people that we are dealing with an abusive, totalitarian state. And while they do oppress people on the basis of race, uh, it's a bigger issue than just racial systemic oppression. Uh, this sting unit that beat Tyree Nichols to death was a creation of the local government in Memphis, which is just, not that it really matters to me, but it is Democrat run. Okay. And mostly African Americans in positions of power in that city, in the city proper. And they created this sting unit. Okay. And they do this all over the country. They create these quasi official sting units that are there to engage in police brutality. And they put all African American officers in this sting unit in order to provide cover for the brutality. And this has been happening in other cities. Now, I watched the channel Police Brutality, or not Police Brutality, Police Activity on YouTube. I saw one a couple years ago. I've been trying to find it, but it's like looking for a needle in a haystack. But a couple years ago, I saw a video in which an African American officer shot a young African American man in the back as he was fleeing the scene. Okay, now, fleeing the scene is wrong, but that doesn't mean you can shoot the guy in the back. So I was actually shocked to see that. And you didn't hear anything about it. So it's no wonder we are at this point we are at now, where we have a situation that people just can't ignore. And a lot of people, I think, want to be able to ignore this because it doesn't fit into their narrative that they want to push, right? But these units are being created all across the country, and their whole purpose is to engage in these sort of brutal tactics. And what I don't get is this population in the United States over the decades has been made so codependent upon the state that no matter how badly the state abuses the population, the tendency among people that are extremely indoctrinated is to run back into the waiting arms of Big Daddy government, the same entity that's been beating you to death. And this goes for all Americans. Just like with the Great Society programs. You had the Great Society programs instituted by one of the most, maybe the second most virulently racist president of the 20th century, Lyndon Baines Johnson. And then a couple years later, African Americans are being drafted at a rate of 30% of draftees and being sent to Vietnam. But the problem is, and this goes with all Americans, it's just that what's happened to African Americans is particularly tragic. And I saw a guy on one of these protests. He said, "Oh, Biden, please do something." He's here in front of a crowd begging Joe Biden to do something. And I said, bless his heart. He doesn't realize that that Joe Biden is part of the power structure, okay, that has created this system that we are under right now, this totalitarian, authoritarian, corrupt, oligarchic system. And I was encouraged, and I'm still encouraged, because people are starting to see that the police, like I said in the last video, aren't there to protect the public. They're there to protect the oligarchy. They're there to protect the people in positions of power. They're not there to protect you. Okay? And this is why we need to go back to, we need to start having serious discussions about real community policing, arming responsible citizens, and allowing them to police their own neighborhoods. And that's the last thing they want, okay? They want you to be dependent, and me to be dependent upon them. Because once you're dependent on them, like an abused, person in an abusive relationship, okay, now the state can beat you down every fucking day. Beat you down, and you're going to take it, and you're going to beg them to stop, and they're not, and you're still going to go back into their arms, okay? And that's what they want. I mean, this is nothing new. One thing about bureaucracies that I've noticed studying history is they don't have the ability to think outside the box. If you get a team of scientists together, you get a smaller group of scientists together to work on a project, they can come up with some innovative solutions, or engineers. You get a larger group, a huge bureaucratic group, a huge bureaucracy to solve a problem. Chances are they're not going to be able to do it, or won't be able to do it very well. So we have this situation now where people have to start seeing this for what it was. Yes, there is that young man wouldn't have been in that situation and beaten to death were it not for systemic racism that has existed and still does. The legacy of that still exists. But the biggest problem is that the state, okay, is abusing the population because it can. Because it can. And I see people in these protest movements calling for solutions that involve the state. There is no solution to this problem that involves the state. None. People have to get back to being more reliant on themselves, able to take care of themselves, okay, rather than relying on some cold-hearted, bureaucratic machine to solve their problems for them. I'm out.